Being one means being one with it all, including the misery. But it can be fun. I'm going to try and answer 3 questions about being one. First one, what does it mean? Second one, why do it? Third one, how to do it. And I don't really know how this is going to go, so we're going to find out together. What does it mean to be one? It is not being separate, not being self-conscious. Whenever we act spontaneously and with joy and enthusiasm, we're not really aware of being a separate person. When I was in my 20s, we won this trip, a bunch of my friends and I, to go see the US Open tennis tournament in New York. And on the plane, I had one of those times where I was just on fire, right? Everything that happened, I had a quip for. My energy level was above the plane, and it just kept going and going and going and going. And that's part of what it is to be one, is to act spontaneously without any inhibition. And on reflection, part of that is I don't really see myself as a separate person. I'm so wrapped up. And just the being high and the expression of enthusiasm and the spontaneity of the moment, that any thought of me being a separate person is gone. It's just not there. Because when we're one with all things, there's nothing outside of us. There's a lot of things that really are tremendously life-enriching about being one. One of them is we see in other people ourselves. So I can see, oh, look, Lena has the same drive for spiritual growth I do. I understand that. I relate to that. And Marcus is always interested in learning more things. Well, me too. I recognize that. And I see myself in all these people. And it helps me feel connected to them. Because when we feel one with all things, when we're experiencing that, we see other people as us and us as them, and we feel deeply connected to them. We relate to them well. We understand them, and they understand us. And it really makes things go well. Those are part of the aspects of being one. So why do it? Why is being one so attractive for those of us that have even given thought to it? And a lot of people haven't, but a lot of people have. If you go online and you Google it, there's a lot of material out there about people working to experience more of being one, and the concept that we all rise and fall together and we're all in this and we're all part of one another. What really makes being one attractive is if you take a look at the things that people are deathly afraid of, right? They all have to do with separation, every one of them. So people say public speaking is scary. Well, not for Toastmaster people, but a lot of people say public speaking is scary. The reason that people are frightened when they do public speaking is because they feel up here that I'm alone and I'm going to be judged as an individual. And they feel separate. Right? But you know from your own experience of public speaking that when you really connect with the audience, you don't feel alone anymore. You're on a roll. It's happening. You feel connected and part of that. The attractiveness of marriage and relationships is all about trying to get past that sense of isolation that so many people experience. If you did a study, and many people have, of how many people in the world are lonely, it's huge. It's a very high percentage of people. And when we're one with all things, we're not lonely because we're part of everything and everything is part of us. We're the drop in the ocean. And so there's so many painful things that exist only because we're not aware of being one. As soon as we're aware of being one and connected to everybody, we're not alone. We're not afraid of being judged by anybody because there really isn't anybody other than just this big one. Right? There's nothing outside of that. So one of the big motivations to be one is to get free of this pain of loneliness and judgment and isolation and separateness. For me, I've looked back and reflected, and I can trace back every difficult, miserable experience, to thinking that I'm separate. All those things disappear when I'm able to experience being one. Now, I don't succeed at it all the time by any measure. But if I've identified it as something that's really worth working on and it's really worth expanding in my life, because why wouldn't I want to be that guy on the airplane who was sharp, witty, had a comeback for everything, had enthusiasm bursting out of him, and had no inhibitions at all? What a way to live. I want as much of that as possible. I realize that it's not all there now, but, incremental improvement, right? We get better at what we focus on, so I'm going to focus on that. So how do we cultivate that? How do we cultivate being one? And for me, it comes down to watching my thoughts. And I'll walk you through my process and how it goes. When I look at my thoughts, the first thing that happens is I realize that they're thoughts. And right away, I don't take them as seriously as I might other because it's only a thought. Second thing that happens is I realize I have a choice. I could pick this thought up or just let it go like the clouds that drift through the sky. Third thing that happens is there starts to be space in between the thoughts. So initially, it's one thought after another, and there's no space between them. But as I watch them, thought comes up, and I'll notice the thought, and then there's a space where there's nothing. And then the next thought comes. And the more diligent I am at looking at the thoughts, the bigger that space comes. And that's the space of spontaneity, of creativity, of the ability to experience more of being one. There's no separateness. There's no isolation in that space in between thoughts. There's only an experience of being one. And more, I'm training myself over time to practice watching my thoughts so they slow down, so I get to experience more of the space between them, more of being one. Because being one to me is fun, it's healthy, it's enjoyable, it's peaceful, it's spontaneous love. I mean, I get wonderful caring ideas that I can act on. I had a hand-blown glass, kind of trophy type thing, made up, and I had it inscribed with my friend's name, and it says, Chris Johnson, a great friend. And I just put it in the mail to him today. But all those kinds of thoughts like that, where our warmth and who we are, all those things come out of that space in between the thoughts as something that is good to do. That's my focus, is identifying what being one is, how to do it, and why to do it. I encourage you to give it a try.